You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Thursday, November 15th, 2018. It is also the feast of St. Albert the Great. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we have been talking about the Catholic Church, which you belong to. On Monday, we talked about how the Catholic Church is the largest denomination of Christians in the world, with over 1 billion members. We also talked about how our church was founded by Jesus Christ, but is a church of human beings whom we should pray for often. On Tuesday, we talked about how our church is universal, meaning no matter where you are in the world, the Catholic Church remains the same. Yesterday, we talked about how the sacraments hold us together as Catholics. And today, we are going to talk about the Pope. As you might know, St. Albert the Great was a pope. He was pope a long time ago, though. He lived in the 1200s. And although that sounds like a long time ago, there were lots of popes even before him. In fact, there has been a pope for the Catholic Church since the time that Jesus Christ walked on the earth. In fact, the very first pope was put into office, you might say, by Jesus himself. Our first pope was the Apostle Peter. Jesus in the gospel turns to Peter and says, "You are the rock upon which I will build my church." And with those words, he made Peter the leader of the early church, the first pope. Now, Peter did not have a big, beautiful basilica to practice Mass in. He didn't have the Pope Mobile, and he probably didn't wear red shoes. But he was the Pope. All of those traditions have been added in the years and generations and centuries since St. Peter became Pope. But we have, without interruption, had a pope since that time. In fact, you probably know that our current pope is Pope Francis. He lives in Rome, in St. Peter's Basilica, and he continues to guide our church today. So let's talk about the Pope. What can the Pope do, and what can't the Pope do? Well, this is a big theological topic that many adults are still concerned about, to be honest. But here are just a few things. Now, many people are confused and they think that the Pope is kind of like, like the king, and that he can do whatever he wants. But the truth is that he cannot do whatever he wants. The Pope, in fact, is not allowed to change our beliefs or to write doctrine. He's not allowed to do that. Instead, he is more of a leader, more of a father to our church. In fact, oftentimes people, when they are visiting St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and the Pope comes out to address them, they will yell a greeting to him. They will say, "Papa, Papa," because the Pope really is the father, the guiding, loving father of the church. Now, although St. Albert the Great was a pope and is now a saint, not all popes become saints. In fact, if you remember on Monday, I told you that yes, our church was founded by Jesus Christ. It is guided by the holy word of Jesus, of God in the scriptures. But we are a church of human beings, and we have had some pretty imperfect popes throughout the years. Popes that really were not very holy men. Many were, like St. Albert the Great, like St. John Paul II, who we talked about a couple of weeks ago, but many of them were not. And yet, my friends, here is the beautiful thing. The church lives on, despite the fact that our Pope might not be perfect. Oftentimes we have wonderful popes, but not all the time. And so, my friends, here is my challenge for you today. As the faithful members of the Catholic Church, we need to not only respect our Pope, but we need to pray for him. He is a human being. The devil can tempt him just like he can tempt us. But the Pope is in a position where he can influence a lot of people. So we need to pray for him. So as you are praying for your church each night, say, Lord, guide your church, and Lord, guide the Pope. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. And finally, a quick heads up to the parents. As we work our way through November, we of course are looking forward to December and Advent. Here on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we will be spending all of Advent exploring the Jesse tree, meaning we will be talking about many of Jesus' ancestors as a way to prepare our hearts to welcome him at Christmas. If you would like to explore the Jesse tree even further at home with your family, I encourage you to look into a beautiful new resource. It's a devotional book for Catholic families that explores the Jesse tree. It takes the stress off of you, gives lots of biblical context, and also is designed to truly teach children about the amazing plan that God has had in place for our salvation from the very, very beginning. To explore this book and the ornaments that go with it, head to DoSmallThingsWithLove /Jesse-Tree.